I am Ruth Bader Ginsburg by Brad Meltzer, illustrated by Christopher Eliopoulos. I am Ruth Bader Ginsburg. From Ordinary People Change the World by Brad Meltzer, illustrated by Christopher Eliopoulos. I am Ruth Bader Ginsburg. How do you create change? I was born with the name Joan Ruth Bader, but my sister changed it to the nickname Kiki since I was such a kicky baby. Kiki, she's Kiki! In kindergarten, my name got changed again. There were so many girls named Joan that my family started calling me Ruth. I'm Joan, I'm Joan, I'm Joan, I'm Joan. You must be Ruth. One of the hardest things to change is what the world thinks of you. Growing up in Brooklyn, New York, I liked the things most kids liked: roller skating, riding bikes, and playing games like stoop ball. Red light, green light, 1, 2, 3. I also did things girls weren't expected to, like climbing to the roof with my cousin. You sure you can handle this? I can handle it. It wasn't easy to reach that roof, but I got there. Nice job climbing. You too. When I was little, people expected different things from boys and girls. In some of the earliest books I read, boys would be climbing trees and riding bikes, while girls would just sit around in pink dresses. This makes no sense. I'd rather be climbing trees than wearing a dress. Thankfully, my parents didn't accept the way things were. My father was an immigrant whose only formal schooling was at night, to learn English. My mother got a job and never had a chance to attend college. Only her brother did. Since he was a boy, the family thought his education was more important. My parents wanted a better life for me, and they knew how to get it. Where are we going? This is the library. Education, Kiki. That's the answer. Every week, my mother took me on our Friday afternoon adventure to the library. I'd pick out 5 books, like Little Women and The Secret Garden. Ooh, this feisty one, Jo, is my favorite. I also enjoyed Greek mythology. And I love doing what you're doing right now, reading about real female heroes, like Amelia Earhart and Harriet Tubman. Since we were Jewish, my mother also introduced me to Jewish women of valor, the boldest and bravest of them all: Emma Lazarus, Henrietta Szold, and Lillian Wald. The women stood for the Jewish idea of tikkun olam, repairing the world, which means helping make the world a better place. To teach me the value of helping others, on my birthday my mother would take me to the local Jewish orphanage, where we'd give away ice cream to everyone. Sure, it would have been nice to have my own party, but I knew how much it mattered to those who had so little. Whoa, ice cream for us? We don't usually get that here. Then I'm very glad we brought it. Being Jewish, I also learned that there were people who didn't like me just because of my religion. Hatred is similar to injustice. Both are destructive fractures in our society that we must repair. Today, people know me for my intelligence, but I wasn't great in every subject. In 8th grade, boys had to take woodshop while girls were forced to take classes in sewing and cooking. This is unfair. I'd rather take woodshop than sew. Just do what you're supposed to do. The assignment was to sew our own graduation gowns. Mine was a mess. Thankfully, my mother had it fixed by a local dressmaker. When I was 17, my mother died. She was the strongest and bravest person I knew. She changed my world and taught me one of life's great lessons. There's nothing a woman can't accomplish. I'll make her proud. I know you will, Ruth. You're strong, just like she was. At Cornell University, a professor helped me understand that one of the greatest ways to change unfair things is through our legal system. As a lawyer, your skills can help make people's lives better. That sounds like a worthwhile job. Understanding the law is like understanding the rules. The problem was back then people didn't think women should go to law school, and they certainly didn't think Jewish women should. I never let that stop me. We should go to law school together. Fantastic, let's do it. This is Marty. He loved me, and he loved my brains, so I married him. I went to Harvard Law School, and then Columbia Law School. When I started, there were 9 women and 500 men. There wasn't even a women's bathroom in the main building. Where's the women's room? Down the block. I was selected for the law review, an honor for top students. At both schools, the first woman to do so. Did I mention that I achieved this while becoming a mother and taking care of my husband while he had cancer? How did you do it all? You find a way. At my law school graduation, I was tied for first place in my class. But because I was a woman, there wasn't a single law firm in New York City that would hire me. We don't hire women. We don't hire Jews. We don't hire mothers with kids. Luckily, one of my law professors convinced a local judge to take a chance. Professor Gerald Gunther. She's one of the best researchers and writers I've ever seen. I can tell. Ruth, this memo is incredible. Judge Edmund Palmieri. Sometimes the only way to make change is when someone gives you a chance. From there, I studied the law in other countries and became a law professor. While in Sweden, I discovered that they had lots of women enrolled in law school. I even saw a judge who was pregnant. What's this word vägmarken mean? It means path maker or way paver, a trailblazer. I like that word. Other times, you wouldn't know change is possible until someone shows you it's possible. When I started teaching at Rutgers Law School, my female students helped spark my interest in developing a field of law. A nearby school has a class of women in law. What do you think about teaching that here? I think that's a fine idea. To prepare, I read every federal decision ever published about women's rights. It didn't take long. There weren't many. Women were not being treated as equal citizens. Eventually, I put that knowledge to work for the American Civil Liberties Union. Back then, even our local college was boys only. That's not fair. Girls should have the same access to education as boys. We helped change the admission policy so girls could study there too. My coworkers and I saw how many unfair laws existed. In Wisconsin, male barbers can cut men's and women's hair, but female hairdressers can only cut women's hair. That's not fair for women. Here's another. If you're a single woman taking care of your parents, the government will help you. But if you're a single man, you get nothing. That's not fair for men. We took them to court to strike down these laws. We agree with you, Mrs. Ginsburg. It is unfair to help women, but not men. We won! Mortz v. Commissioner, 1972. Oftentimes, change doesn't happen all at once. It happens little by little, case by case. All we wanted was for women and men to have the same rights. To achieve that, we needed to change more than the laws. We had to change how people think. It came down to a simple question. How would you like the world to be for your daughters and granddaughters? One of my biggest cases was about a woman named Sally Reed, and a law in Idaho that said when you're choosing someone for a certain job, you should always choose a man before you choose a woman. I co-wrote the brief that we sent to the Supreme Court, which is the most powerful court in the country. This is completely unfair. We need to present our argument clearly. Get it right and keep it tight. I found out the result on a train. Reed versus Reed, 1971. Sally Reed wins. We won unanimously, which means every member of the Supreme Court voted for our side. It was the first time in history that the court struck down a law like that for being unfair to women. Soon I got to argue my first case at the Supreme Court. It looked just like the temples from my old mythology books. I wore my mother's jewelry to honor her. At the podium, I had to lower the microphone. 9 justices, which is what they call the judges, all of them men, stared down at me. I was definitely nervous. But once I started speaking, the justices got to hear what life was like. Frontario v. Richardson, 1973. When people treat you like a second-class citizen. Weinberger v. Weinsfeld, 1975. In each case, our argument was the same. Laws that stereotype about the way men and women are often both unfair. Duren v. Missouri, 1979. Over the years, we won 5 out of 6 Supreme Court cases I argued. In the process, we changed the way people are treated. Eventually, I wasn't just arguing in front of the court. I became a judge, and then a Supreme Court justice, the second woman and first Jewish woman ever. I have a last thank you. It's to my mother. I pray that I may be all that she would have been had she lived in an age when women could aspire and achieve. One of the most important cases we heard was about the Virginia Military Institute, a school that didn't allow women to be students. Women aren't strong enough to be in the military, plus they'd be a distraction. These were the same arguments I'd heard for decades. This time, though, I would be one of the people voting. Every justice but one agreed with me that the school treated women unfairly and had to change their policies. We won! Girls can enroll now! More important, at other public schools, they can't do that to girls either. During my time on the Supreme Court, I wasn't always on the winning side. In fact, I lost a lot. I dissent. What's a dissent? It's when you disagree with the majority of the justices and you write your own opinion telling the public why. I dissent. I dissent. I really dissent on this one. In one case, a woman named Lily Ledbetter was being paid less than her male coworkers for doing the same job. My dissent told Congress that my fellow justices misunderstood the existing law. I dissent. Within 2 years, Congress listened and created a new law. They're calling it the Lily Ledbetter Fair Pay Act. Over time, the best reasoned dissents can eventually become the majority view. That's how progress works. When you break down barriers, others can get a fair chance. In my life, they told me that women couldn't climb trees, couldn't have adventures, couldn't be lawyers, and certainly couldn't be Supreme Court justices. But there's nothing a woman cannot be. I was as smart and capable as anyone else, but because I was a woman, I wasn't given the same opportunities. So how do you change things when the rules are unfair? You change the rules. When Justice Ginsburg started law school, less than 3% of U.S. legal professionals were women. Today, more than half of law students are women, and nearly 40% of federal judges are women, including 4 members of the Supreme Court. The lace collar around her neck is called a jabot. Justice Ginsburg wore different ones for different occasions, including one she wore for dissents. Did you know that her daughter Jane became a law professor and was a mentor to the author of this book, helping him become a writer? When Justice Ginsburg was officially appointed, the Supreme Court finally put a women's bathroom in the robing room, the same size as the men's. Belva Lockwood, Geraldine Ferraro, Florence Allen, Dorothy Kenyon, Myra Bradwell, Pat Schroeder, Polly Murray, Erin Clonch, Kendra Russell. At some point, there will be things you want to change. People might call you a complainer or a troublemaker. They'll tell you that things are fine the way they are. But when you see something that's unjust, you need to take a stand. Use your voice, use your brain. If people ignore you, let them hear your dissent. You may not win now, but you can open minds tomorrow. Today, they call me a trailblazer, but the best part of blazing a trail is leaving tracks. That means you're not just doing things for yourself, you're leaving a path for others to follow. Start with one voice and let it grow into a chorus. I am Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Create equality, create justice. Rochelle Shorts, Phil Weiser, Laura Brill, James Ginsburg, Jane Ginsburg, Sonia Sotomayor, Amy Coney Barrett, Elena Kagan, Ketanji Brown Jackson, Sandra Day O'Connor. Fight for the things that you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you. Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Timeline: March 15, 1933, born in Brooklyn, New York. June 23, 1954, marries Martin Ginsburg. 1959, graduates Columbia Law School. 1959, clerks for Judge Edmund L. Palmieri. 1963, becomes professor at Rutgers Law School. 1971, writes first brief for Supreme Court Reed v. Reed. 1972, becomes professor at Columbia Law School. 1973, first oral argument at Supreme Court, Frontario v. Richardson. 1973, becomes general counsel of ACLU. 1980, is appointed the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. August 10, 1993, is sworn in as Supreme Court Justice. 1999, wins American Bar Association's Thurgood Marshall Award. September 18, 2020, dies of pancreatic cancer at age 87. In the top left is Ruth in 1977, top right, Ruth being sworn in as Supreme Court Justice, and the bottom are all the justices in Ruth's first year.